Hey, Rev students, how are you guys doing? Happy New Year. It's good to be back here with you guys. I know it's been a little bit, right? A couple of weeks. But like I said, I am excited to be here with you. I love the new year. It's a time of new things, exciting things. And one of the things, not necessarily about the new year, but one of the things that I personally love is like extreme adventure stories, right? Like, I know I'll be on Facebook or YouTube and it will suggest a video for me, like the journey to the deepest point in the ocean. I'm like, I gotta know what happens. What's at the deepest point in the ocean? Who's there? What's going on? What did they find? What don't I know, right? So I'm interested, I'm engaged. You know, it might be like hunt through the safari and the animal no one's ever found before. I was like, they found a new animal? Like, I have to know this. What's going on? I was listening to a story recently about some college students who they were kind of telling the tale of back in the day, but they were telling the story about how they prepared to climb this mountain in Colorado. I think it's called Long's Peak. I could be butchering it, but they were like, hey, we're going to do this thing. We're excited about this thing. They got a group of friends together to do it, and they began training, right? You know, you can't just be like, you know what? I'm going to climb a 14,000-foot mountain. Let's go, right? So they began to train and climb smaller mountains and get ready to do this thing, and they go through this period, and they get ready for their time to climb this mountain, right? 14,000 feet. I'm not sure if you've ever seen a real mountain. Like, how many people have been to Stone Mountain before? Right? A good bit of you. Stone Mountain isn't a real mountain, right? It's a big rock. Like, real mountains are big and massive, and you can't even imagine what it's like to walk all the way up to the top of it. And so they're getting ready to do this, and they're climbing, and things are going well, right? They've been training for it. They're getting ready, and they kind of get to this midway point, and they get to this place that they called the keyhole. If you don't know what a keyhole is, it is a hole that you put a key in. And so the reason they called it that is because it was this small hole that they kind of had to shimmy their way through. It was real tight. And when they got to the other side, they found something that they were unprepared for. As the elevation increased pretty rapidly, it began to snow, and they were not prepared to climb this with the snow, all of their clothes and gear getting wet, and some very narrow ledges and passages that they're trying to climb. And so what they noticed were they were able to see the footsteps and the handprints of where people had held on to things before and stepped where they stepped before. So as they're observing this, they're stepping where other people stepped, and they're holding where other people held to get to where they're trying to go. And the elevation and the cold is beginning to wear on them. They're telling the story, and they're like, my breathing became just haggard. I couldn't get whole breaths. I felt winded, like I'd just been running the whole time. I just couldn't catch my breath. And they kind of get to this plateau, and what they see at this plateau is just another long piece of elevation, and they're just like, I give up. I can't do this. I'm overwhelmed. I don't know what's going on. I can't do this thing. And right about that time, as they tell the story, some mountain guy just kind of pops up. I kind of picture him like the ice store guy from Frozen. You know, he's like, yoo-hoo, big summer blowout. That's kind of what I'm picturing here right now. You know, they're gasping for air and trying to survive, and this guy kind of pops up out of the rocks, yoo-hoo. And so this is kind of how they tell the story. And this guy comes up, and he's like, hey, guys, have you been to the top yet? And they're just like, what are you talking about? We're barely alive right now trying to be where we've been. And he looks at them, and he pulls some gear out of his bags, and he gives them new gloves, and he gives them a different type of jacket. And he's like, hey, I'm going to help take you to the top. And they tell this story about how they begin to walk the way that this guy walked, that they had to learn how to breathe differently at this type of elevation. So they would watch this guy. He says, hey, this is how you need to breathe right now. And they would breathe the way that he breathed. And what I learned listening to this story, it was kind of a bummer. It never told what happened when they got to the top. I don't know, bad story, whatever. But I noticed some things in this story that I thought was interesting. Kind of two things I pulled out of it. The first one is the best way to get somewhere you want to be is to follow someone who's already been there. The best way to get somewhere you want to be is to follow someone who has already been there. The second thing, and this is kind of pulled out of one of the things that the mountain guy said, as he was saying, he's like, hey, you have to learn how to do things differently. You have to breathe differently. You have to walk differently. The thing that I think we learned that's kind of universally true is new environments require new rhythms. New environments require new rhythms. And listen, the reason I bring this up, it's not because I feel like you guys are going to be climbing a 14,000-foot mountain anytime soon, and I want you guys to be well prepared. I don't think that's what's next for most of you, or any of you. But you guys are experiencing new things all the time, right? We've just entered the new year. And the new year is full of excitement. It's full of angst. And we're like, man, what's going to happen this year? Man, I have my New Year's resolutions. I've set these goals. I'm going to work out more. I'm going to get better grades. I'm going to eat better. I'm going to eat worse. I don't know what your goal is, what you're planning for, what are the things that you're shooting for. But there's something about this a new year that there's this new coming, right? Here's what I found out. The idea of new year, new you is a lie, right? Just because it's a new year doesn't mean it's a new you. In fact, without making changes, you'll be the exact same person that you were last year. New environments require new rhythms. If you want to walk into 2024 being the exact same person you are right now, don't do anything different. But if you are excited about the opportunity of a new year, if you're excited about the opportunity of something new, hopefully you're in this place here today because you believe that God, it fits somewhere in the midst of that. That there's something new that God might want for you, that there's something new that God might have for you, and that this might be the year that happens. Maybe that's why you find yourself in this place today. Here's what I'm going to tell you. You're not going to get it without doing something new. If you want something new, you're going to have to do something new. So my question for you guys as we get started, not only with where we're going today, but where we're going in our season of Abide, our series to kick off the year, is do you have the right rhythms for where you want to go? Do you have the right rhythms for where you want to go? Do you have the right rhythms for the things that you want out of life? I think, like I said, most people are here because they believe God fits somewhere in that. Maybe for you, you're not sure that you would say, man, I want God this year. This is the year I want a better relationship with God. This is the year I want to grow closer to God. Maybe that's not you, but I believe maybe the thing that you want, you think God has something to do with it. Maybe he influences, maybe he's a part of it, maybe he's the provider of it, but he is a part of it. He's a part of the equation. And really the reason I think most of us, when it comes to this idea of new, I think most of us would say, man, I want to have a great relationship with God. I believe in God. And because I believe in God, I want a great relationship with him. The reason I think we don't is because our relationship we have with him right now, we are unsatisfied. The reason we don't want more of him is we're not enjoying the things we already have. And I would take a stab in the dark and guess if we are unsatisfied with our relationship with God and where we are right now, it might have something to do with the rhythms of our life and where they are leading us. And this is true about any relationship. I think the reason most of the times we have unsatisfying relationships is because the things that we do. For example, take my relationship with my wife, right? My wife, we've been married for 11 years. There's a lot of things I do for my wife, right? Like I do the dishes. I take out the trash. I clean the thing that she calls hair that gets stuck in the drain, right? I'm trying to enjoy a nice shower, like a warm, just, it's been a long day and I'm just trying to enjoy it. And next thing I know, like the water is ankle deep in my shower. And I'm like, man, this is gross. It's kind of a weird color. So there's this thing called like a drain snake, right? And you go in there and you start trying to pull this out. And next thing I know, there's like this creature that comes out of the drain, right? Like one time I did it and it blinked at me and we looked at each other for a moment and then it went away. I'm like I'm intimidated. Like I don't know what's going on here, right? So hey, fellas, I'm gonna tell you something you might not know yet, especially if you don't have sisters. If you do have sisters, you've probably figured this out. Girls are kind of gross, all right? Girls are kind of gross, all right? My hair doesn't grow creatures in the drain, all right, when I take a shower. Like that's not an attribute that I have. But these are things I do. I kill all of the cockroaches that enter my house, right? Like that is part of my job. Like I've even begun contemplating like, man, these cockroaches are becoming a problem. Like maybe if I kill some of them and like I display them at the entrances of my houses, the other cockroaches will become intimidated and they won't want to come in my house anymore, right? Like that's where I'm thinking. That's where my mind's at. That is my job. But here's the thing. None of those things is the reason why me and my wife fell in love with each other, right? Like we didn't start dating and I'm just like, I'm gonna do all the dishes and I'm gonna vacuum and I'm gonna kill the cockroaches. And she's like, you know what? I want to marry you and spend the rest of our life together, right? That's not what happened. We spent time together and we grew in relationship. And because of that, we wanted to celebrate our relationship and we got married. And you know what? Even after our wedding, we didn't go home and say, hey, all right, we're married now and do some more dishes and do some more vacuuming. Those are things that we do. I don't do those things to try to make my wife love me. I do those things because I love my wife. Here's the reason I bring that up. And it's true in all of our relationships, but here is the danger that we can fall into. We can begin to try to do things for God to get love from him. We can begin to try and do, hey, I'm gonna go to church. Hey, I'm gonna have good behavior. Hey, I'm not gonna cuss. Hey, I'm not gonna have sex before marriage. I'm gonna do all of these things, and you know what then happens? Then God is going to love me. That's not how it works. That's not how any relationship works. We don't do things to get love. In fact, I think that is why most of us are probably finding not satisfying relationships with God, because we keep doing things and we keep doing things and we keep trying to earn something. And he says that's not how it works. It's interesting, we see that Jesus is actually gonna discuss this as he's teaching to a group of Jewish leaders, right? And here's what I'll say about this. This is the best way I could summarize this for you for our time together. So if you're taking notes, write this down. There is nothing that you can do that changes the way that God feels about you. There is nothing that you can do that changes the way God feels about you. And here is where we have to be cautious. Here is the danger that we can fall. We can begin trying to do things for God, hoping that it makes him feel better about us, right? And maybe if we do more good things than we do bad things, God will like us. God will love us. We'll be in good relationship with God. And this is actually, unfortunately, a lot of the Jewish mindset that we see in the New Testament that Jesus was actually actively fighting against. We find this one passage in Matthew 11, verse 25. Logan read it earlier. And to set it up, the Jewish leaders were basically the top tier Christians, right? What we would say. They had their list of the things that made them better. You know, hey, I'm not gonna cuss. Hey, I'm gonna give generously. Hey, I'm gonna do this. And their lists were better than everyone else's list. They did better than everyone else. All of their things were better than all the people around them. So most people would assume their relationship with God was better than everyone else's. And there's this interesting conversation here where Jesus is talking to him. He wants to break down this idea. I'll show it to you right here. It says, at that time, Jesus declared, this is Matthew chapter 11, verse 25. At that time, Jesus declared, I thank you, Father, Lord of heaven and earth, that you have hidden these things from the wise and understanding and revealed them to the little children. So before we continue, I want you to see something here. What Jesus is saying here is that the people that everyone assumed was really, really smart and knew everything are missing what Jesus is trying to say. And that the people who would not consider themselves the most intelligent, would not consider themselves the most well-studied, that haven't spent their whole lives devoted to this, they actually have the ability to understand this better. Jesus continues, yes, Father, for such was your gracious will. All things have been handed over to me by my Father, and no one knows the Son except the Father, and no one knows the Father except the Son, and anyone into whom the Son chooses to reveal him. Here's what's going on here. I told you earlier that the Jewish leaders, they had their list. They were the top tier Christian people of their time. They were the ones who acted better, who looked better, who read more, who prayed more, who attended more church services. They did all the things. And they would say, all the things that I do make me better. That God loves me more. I have a closer relationship with God. And here's what Jesus is saying. He's saying the only thing on the list is, do you know me? He's saying the only thing on the list that God cares about is, do you know the Son? Do you know Jesus? You can attend all the church services that you want to. You can live the most moral life. You can do all of the best behavior things. People can look at you and think you're the best person ever. But if you don't know Jesus, then you've missed the whole point. And then Jesus continues and he has an invitation for us. So he says, hey, it's not about your list. It's if you know me. And then Jesus invites us to come know him. Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. It says, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Jesus is inviting us into relationship here. Jesus isn't saying, hey, if you really want to be in a relationship with me, here are the things that you need to do. Hey, you need to act better. Hey, you need to read your Bible more. Hey, you need to pray more. He says, no, here's what you need to do. You need to follow me. The idea of following is this idea of apprenticeship. An apprentice does what the master does. This is the idea of seeing the person who's where you want to be and you're doing the things that they do. So you see Jesus take a step and you said, hey, this is the step that I take. You see Jesus grab a hold to the side of the mountain. You said, hey, this is where I hold on to. You see Jesus says, hey, this is how we breathe. And you say, okay, this is how I breathe, that you learn the way that Jesus lived so you can be the places that Jesus went. Who is this invitation for? All who are weary, troubled, burdened, overwhelmed, anxious, upset, hurt, scared, exhausted, unsatisfied. Maybe right now you have something that is just weighing you down, that is burdensome. You're thinking, how am I going to figure this thing out? When am I going to figure it out? How am I going to get it done? When will this situation end? What are other people going to think about me? And all the questions that begin to flood your head and make you feel so overwhelmed, you don't even know what to do. You don't find true satisfaction in friends or our relationships. See, this invitation is for you. This invitation is for you. Listen, the satisfaction in the life that Jesus offers should be appealing to us if we evaluate our lives and says, there's something in there that I want and I don't currently have. The life that Jesus is inviting us to follow him into, to learn from him, should be appealing to us. We should want that if we look at that and say, hey, I'm unsatisfied with what I have, but it seems like maybe you have something I don't, and I need to follow you to get there. So we have an invitation to do life differently. And for us as a church, for us as a student ministry, we believe that it's important the best way we could start our year is to simply pause and slow down a moment and begin to walk the way that Jesus walked and take the steps that Jesus took and breathe the way that Jesus breathed so we can begin experiencing the life that Jesus had. So we're about to start a period of time where we're going to begin to do things. I know we're talking about fasting in just a moment, and we're going to begin that on Monday. We're going to be talking about Bible study and prayer and generosity and serving. And listen, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm giving you a list. I'm giving you a list of things to do, but I don't want you to miss out on the point. I'm not giving you a list of things to do so that God loves you more. I'm giving you a list of things to do so that you can love God more, so that you can grow in relationship with him. If you would say, hey, I don't get the point. My relationship with Jesus is unsatisfying. I don't really get the whole thing. My challenge is you, hey, maybe for a period of time, try to do things differently. And maybe, just maybe, you'll get different results. And today we're going to talk about fasting. Like we're about to go on a 21-day journey and climb a mountain, right? And for us to climb this mountain, for us to get where we want to go in this new environment, we're going to have to develop some new rhythms. We're going to have to do things differently. And specifically when it comes to fasting, fasting isn't about doing more, but it's about doing differently. Fasting is not about adding more to our plate, about doing one more spiritual thing, but it's about beginning to do things differently. So I want to define fasting for you. Fasting is the removal of things in our lives to be replaced with something greater. That we would find things in our life, and I'm not saying that you should find things in your life that don't need to be there. Like I'm not saying, you know what? Maybe I should fast being mean to people. Like that will get me closer to God. That's not what he's asking you to do. He's saying, hey, I want you to find something important. I want you to find something meaningful. And I want you to take a pause and take a break so that you might find me more meaningful in this time. That you might find me more valuable in this time. So starting Monday, we are going to go on a 21-day fast, and we want to invite you in on it. That as we begin to scale this mountain and we are praying that we're going to experience God in a new way and experience him differently, that we begin to develop some new rhythms to get where we want to go. It's going to require us to walk differently. It's going to require us to breathe differently. But for us to get where we want to go, we have to follow the one who's already been there. So we have two type of fast that we're asking you to do in this time. One is a food fast. We want you to fast from some type of food. You might fast a meal. You might fast a certain type of food that you really love. You might fast sugar. You might do a particular type of diet. Listen, the point of it isn't that you're going to lose weight. The point of it isn't that you're doing some type of spiritual thing that other people would look at you and think, oh man, look, this person's not eating this, they're so spiritual. The point of it is that as we begin to take these things out of our life, we would replace them with things that draw us closer to God. The second type of fast is a media fast. What I mean by media is some type of entertainment. Maybe you need to take a 21-day break from social media because it is constantly interrupting your life. Every notification, every alert, every video. You get sucked in, and next thing you know, 2 hours of your life are gone. I'm speaking from experience, right? Like, I know how it is. You watch one video of a puppy, and next thing you know, 2 hours later, you're just down the rabbit hole, right? What would it look like for our lives and our relationship with God if we went down a 2-hour rabbit hole learning more about who Jesus is and what he has done for us? How would your life look different? So we want to do some type of media fast. Maybe it's TV. Maybe you're not going to watch any TV or any movies. I want you to think through. And I want you to make it something that will be difficult for you. When you think about what you should fast for, you should be like, do I really want to do that for 21 days? Like, I'm right in the middle of my favorite show. The playoffs are about to start in the NFL. Like, right, it should be something that hurts a little bit. Why? Because we want to say that Jesus is that more important. Well, we're taking a break from some things so we can replace them with greater things. Listen, I'll say it this way. The more important things that you take a break from, the more important you are saying Jesus is. Make it difficult. Make it hard. And listen, you can do this. You could do this wrong. You can make this all about you. I don't have time to get into the passage, but there's a passage where Jesus jumps on these guys' cases because they're like, look, I'm so spiritual. Look at me fasting. Look, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. The whole point of fasting is that you realize that you're not that spiritual and you need more of Jesus. And so the fact if you're going around saying, hey, look how great I am, I'm doing this thing, misses the entire point. I don't want this to be another list. It's not just one more thing that we have to do to try and earn something from God. There's nothing we can do that changes the way that he feels about us, but I want to invite you on a journey. We are about to climb a mountain, and Jesus has already walked through it. He has showed us the way to experience something new. And so we're going to begin to step the way that he steps and breathe the way that he breathes so we can get to the places that he's already been. Here's my kind of closing thoughts for you. Our pursuit is for a person, not for a set of practices. Here's what I've seen over and over again. We can get this fasting wrong because we get so focused on what we're fasting from. And we overanalyze and we get overcritical. The point isn't what we're removing. The point is what we're getting out of it. It's not about the prayer. If you miss a day of prayer, if you have a moment where you mess up on your fast, that doesn't mean the whole thing's wasted. It's not about the practice, it's about the person that you're getting to know. For us, like I said, maybe we need a palate cleanse, right? This 21 days is a moment for us to take a break. Do y'all understand the concept of a palate cleanse, right? Like you're eating some things, it's usually in between meals. I know like a multi-course meal isn't really a thing anymore, but there's actual purpose for it, that in between two different meals, you would have something that cleanses your palate so that you have the ability to taste, have a true tasting of what's next. And so I want you to think about this as a palate cleanse. You have been tasting what Netflix has and what your school has and all of the influences and what's on TikTok and all the things that consume your life and consume your time and pull you away from Jesus. And for 21 days, we have a moment to pause and cleanse our palate and see what he is really like and see how good he really is and experience him in a way that we've never experienced him before. But it's up to you. You have to do the work. It's over 21 days, and 21 days, if you don't know this, is actually the average time period to develop a new habit. That you could walk out of this 21 days and it not just be something that you do for 21 days, but your everyday life has become a rhythm of following Jesus. I asked at the beginning, and what do you want? What do you want for 2023? What do you want for your life? What do you want from God? Where do you want to go? Who do you want to be? And I said, without us making changes, we'll be the same person that we are today, walking into the room right now. Listen, students, don't miss this. People don't decide their futures. They decide their rhythms, and their rhythms decide the futures. The rhythms that you begin developing and operating in over the next month, over the next couple of months, over the next year, dictate not only who you'll be next year, but who you'll be for the rest of your life. And I don't know what you want, but my prayer and my hope for you, that you would take this seriously and that you would want God in this time, that you would want to experience more of him. So we have a couple of things for you to do. One is the Abide Guide in your journal. So you should have got a journal when you walked in. We've given you a tool to help you. We'll be talking about Bible study next week, but the fast starts on Monday. We want you to start that. And so you have the ability to try and understand and read what God has for you. And so every day has a verse, and it gives you a tool to begin writing and reading and learning more about who God is and what he has for you. So I want to challenge you. Maybe you do it as a small group. I don't know, but challenge you to begin experiencing some new rhythms of following God. And that guide is there to help you. And there's a scripture for every day starting Monday for the 21 days. The other thing we have is after you finish your small groups, we have 2 canvases out in the lobby. One canvas is for you. We've done this before. Is for you to take a moment and write what you want to fast from. There's nothing magical about it. It's not going to magically make you better at it. But it is a moment for you to say, hey, I am doing this. I am serious about this. If you are not serious about it, I don't want you to write on it. But if you are serious about experiencing God in a new way and finding some things in your life that are important to you and say, hey, I want Jesus more than those things. I want you to write it on one of those boards. And then the other board is for you to write, what do you want from God? What are you praying for? What's the new for you? What is the thing that you want from God? Maybe it's something you've been praying for a long time. Maybe it's something you're still trying to figure out. And so you're going to talk about that in your small groups for a little bit. I would love for you to take that time at the end of your small group, head out over to those boards and take a moment and just pray and ask God to do something over this 21 days. Make sure you're here. Every week is going to build off of each other. And I am just hoping and praying that God does something, that we don't walk out of this 21 days and it's just another time for us to get together, but that we walk out of this 21-day period and say, we have experienced something new that we've never done before. We've walked to new places. We've experienced new things, and God is so much better. Pray with me.